So I was trying to figure out if I was going to wait till tomorrow to have a look at what has happened now with FCC filings around a Super Nintendo accessory, a Super Nintendo controller for the Switch. If I was going to hold that off till tomorrow morning for Newswave, but I'm starting to get more and more stuff popping up for the show tomorrow morning, which includes PS5 information, a state of play, and some other different things. And then there's going to be a pretty cool, I would say, midweek tech wave tomorrow, late afternoon. So a lot of stuff's already happening tomorrow, and this is kind of an update to a story that was already on Newswave, specifically about Nintendo, hopefully looking at the 1-year anniversary of the online service and bringing over Super Nintendo games. Well, an FCC filing has now surfaced, and this is, I think, as much evidence as we'll get before Nintendo actually announces that, yes, Super Nintendo games are coming over as part of that online subscription, that library that continues to grow with obscure and at times boring NES games. It's never great when they drop that trailer on YouTube and it gets hit like crazy with thumbs down and everything. And it looks like Nintendo might be planning something for September. That's the hope now that this filing has happened. So let's take a look at it, because there are a few things to go over with it. If you enjoy the video, though, make sure you drop a like before you leave. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe as we go through all this kind of stuff, different news, and some fun teardowns and reviews as well. So let's take a look at this. This is the page, actually, which I'll leave down below in the description if you want to look through it yourself. You'll notice that on the right, we have when it was submitted and when it's going to be available. Some of this is confidential. They filed for short-term confidentiality around certain documents, which isn't, like, weird. It's not abnormal to have that. That's why they have short-term confidentiality, and it appears that Nintendo has set that as, if you read through the filings, if you don't set a date, they will set it 45 days after you submit this information. It appears that they submitted it, if you look at it, on the 13th. They do have also the 9th, but it seems that this popped up on a lot of people's alerts. I saw a Nibble had posted this on Twitter when it appeared someone on Reset Air had spotted it, and it looked like that the alert went up on the 13th, so earlier this morning. And that's, if you look through it, when it appears that they made this official on the website. Some of this is slated to be revealed February 6th of 2020, which is later than I would figure, although they could have this go public earlier than that. That's just a date they have set. Now, keep in mind, the original NES controllers, these ones were revealed, and then they came out in December is when they started shipping them. But they revealed them pretty well before then, and you had to go through the online service to get them. Otherwise, you couldn't get them. You had to be a member of it, which I guess to a degree makes sense, considering these will work with NES games and somewhat with other things, but they're obviously set up for that. So here is an image that was spotted, and this straight up looks like a Super Nintendo controller. Now, from the image posted here, it's not exactly like the one that they had in the classic controller, where you can see the screw holes are different. But, of course, it's going to be wireless, it'll have battery and everything, so it looks like it's going to be a bit different, I would say. So having screws in different spots isn't like a weird thing for them. And you can see it does have the model number HAC042, whereas the model number on the NES controller, HAC-034. I believe the ones that were released in Japan that have different color schemes were 033, so it does at least appear to be kind of going in the correct order. Maybe the eventual N64 controller will be in like the 50s or something. Maybe the GameCube controller will be in the 60s. I know I'm like way ahead of myself there, but yes, the model number appears to be correct. And then you have the FCC ID number and everything, which we're already technically under that when we look at this. So one thing that kind of caught me off guard about this design, I don't really see a railing. This, of course, has a railing at the top, and even in the pictures with the FCC, you could still spot that railing. I don't really see one here. I see a couple of grooves at the top that could be extra buttons, where these have, of course, L, R, and everything. I don't know if they're going to add anything like ZR, ZL, but something else that kind of caught me off guard is that we would have buttons, but they have seemingly removed the buttons in this picture at the top, right, and left for the shoulder buttons. So maybe the railing has also been removed. We should see buttons kind of coming out here, but they're not there. This appears to just be a drawing of the back casing, if I had to take a guess. So railing might still be there. It's just not a part of this picture, if that makes sense. It appears that the idea of this picture is specifically to show the label itself on the back, not necessarily the details around the edge of the controller or anything. I mean, like I said, there's no real screws or anything in there. It just appears to be showing all of this. And yeah, that's the back of a Super Nintendo controller. Let's be honest, the shape and everything looks pretty straightforward there. Now, what else is really interesting is we got more information about the battery inside, and to no one's surprise, it's the same battery that's in the NES controller and the same battery that's in the Joy-Con controllers. So 525 milliamp hours, 3.7 volts. They do describe a 1.5 meter cable, which I assume will just be a USB Type-C cable, although I guess you would plug it in, but if it slides onto the side of the Switch, you wouldn't really need to worry about that. That is how, of course, these guys charge. So I don't know, maybe they won't let them slide in to the sides. I mean, these are flat. I imagine the Super Nintendo controllers might not stand up as well. I mean, this just straight up has a flat edge, a straight edge that it can just stand up and down on, whereas it might not work that well for the Super Nintendo being curved on the edge. The rest of the stuff they describe here is all the different things that they use to test it, whether it's like the wall wart being a Sony adapter, their Dell laptop, it appears, all kinds of stuff like that. So don't really worry about anything in the support equipment side, just worry about the accessories at the top. Now the question is, what are they going to do here with this? Because it obviously appears that Super Nintendo games are going to be making their way over. I don't think anyone's really that surprised to hear about that, considering most of us were assuming that it would show up with the 1 year anniversary to get people to sign on, considering they haven't really done a ton of stuff other than, hey, Smash Bros. Has online, hey, Mario Tennis has online, hey, Splatoon 2 has online. You can't message your friends, but you got to pay for it to play online. And that's kind of what they've done. I don't know that many people who get like overly excited about the NES games that are being offered. And for a lot of people, the best thing that they did for the online service was Tetris 99 just being added. Like that's like the most excited I've seen people when it comes to the online service, which was like a really cool idea, by the way. Tetris 99 is a really, really unique idea. Very neat. But if you remember a while ago, we had the data mining that took place. Here it is right here from Cappuccino, saying a bunch of different games, including Mario Kart, Super Soccer, Link to the Past, Demon's Crest, which was the one that caught me off guard, Yoshi's Island, Contra 3, Kirby Superstar. These are all games that you would expect to kind of show up from Nintendo from a first-party perspective, and some of the third-party stuff, like I said, kind of throws me a bit. F-Zero would be neat. That's on the list. But yeah, to have all of these show up at once would surprise me a little bit. These were data mined out of that NES online app, along with, according to them, 3 different emulators. So we assume one of them is the NES one, obviously. Maybe the other one's the Super Nintendo one. Game Boy, maybe being for that third one. It's not unsurprising to have values and stuff added to code ahead of time. And to see this many games show up all at once would be surprising. I think they're going to drip feed them, but they could show up with like 5 or 6 all at once. I don't know if it'll show up with like 20 or something like that of Super Nintendo games, but definitely a handful to get things started. The basics, I would say, Mario World, right? Link to the Past, makes sense. And maybe Donkey Kong Country, maybe, we'll see. But yeah, it's not surprising to hear about a bunch of games showing up from the Super Nintendo. Now, the other question is, when do they reveal this? And here's the thing. Generally, Nintendo likes to announce, and they were off this last time, which was really weird. Generally, the second Tuesday, I believe, is when they like to announce this stuff, right? They like to show up and say, hey, on Twitter specifically, 2 NES games are coming, right? And it generally turns into a lot of frustration, like I said, downvotes and everything. But the second Tuesday in September is the 10th. So it's very possible they could just drop all that information on the 10th later on at night. Or it's very possible that they hold off for what could end up being, as a lot of people are assuming there to be, a September Direct. And maybe they outline that loudly for a lot of people. Because remember, people don't have to renew their online service until what, the 20th, right, of September? So they do have a little bit of a buffer there. As long as they can announce that Super Nintendo games are coming ahead of when everyone has to renew, they probably can hook a lot of people again. But it's going to be interesting to see. I would prefer, to be honest, at this point, for them to just work on their online service and the functionality behind it, rather than just continue to add older games. But I mean, hey, Super Nintendo games are great, and I would like them to do both. Super Nintendo games, let people message their friends, send invites easily between games, party chat, all of that stuff. I don't think that's too much to ask now in current times, but Super Nintendo games, I guess, are a nice little consolation prize. I'll leave the link down below for you guys if you want to check out more about the FCC filing and see if you can find anything in there as well. Generally, when these FCC filings go through, that means we're getting pretty close to an announcement. And everything seems to be pointing to September, just overall. There's no guarantee, but, I mean, it seems very likely, I'll say, that something is going down in September for Super Nintendo-related news. Thanks, guys, for watching. Let me know what you think down below. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. Dislike if not, and I'll see you guys next time.